Hey y'all, it's Christy from Teadoddles, and today I'm working on this Aster shirt from Colette. Um, this version here, and for the sleeves, I'm using this lace. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how I combine these fabrics and what I'm doing to this lace to prepare it for the pattern. So before that, let's say welcome new subscribers and welcome back subscribers. I'm happy to have you here with me in my maker shenanigans. I do like to do the sewing things, the yarny things, and the DIY things. So if you like to make things, you might like it here. All right. So this is the lace. Now this is a slightly stretchy lace. It's not like super stretchy, but it does have stretch to it. And this is a rayon, just rayon, no stretch really to it. So combining a stretch and a non-stretch fabric can give issues sometimes. And then working with lace is a little different, and I'm still learning about it a little bit. So, but this is what I'm been pondering on, is how to finish this edge. Originally, I was going to take the edging off of the edge of the fabric and sew that to finish it, but then I realized the opposite edge is a completely different. So to have enough, I would need both edges, and that is just not going to work. And I also realized I had to cut another sleeve piece because I had cut them out together, folded together, and the lace was going in the opposite direction on one of the sleeves, and that's not going to work either. So something to pay attention, which when you have directional prints, you would pay attention to that. But with lace, you need to pay attention to that as well. So what I've decided to do, you'll notice this sleeve has a little gap missing in it, and that's just where I placed it, and that's because I'm going to cut off part of this because the way the sleeve is made, it's curved. But what I want to do is cut out around some of these insets, just like that. So that's going to give me a more finished edge. Now, I don't know how well it's going to hold up. It depends on this lace and how well it washes and all of that stuff. So this is kind of an experiment for me, and that's okay. And now on the ends, you'll notice that I do not have, I'm going to start cutting here. So this part won't be like that. Most of this is gonna, some of this is gonna get eaten up in the seam, and then it'll be fine. It's gonna be under my armpit. I'm not worried about it. Okay. So what I'm talking about is I'm gonna cut. Let me zoom in on here for a minute. Nope, that's not what I want to do. All right, here we go. You can see a little bit better. I'm gonna cut here. So it's gonna go up, and then there's a little opening in the lace there. And I'm gonna, rather than me trying to put a hem on it, which would be completely visible, might not look so great, I'm going to cut just like this across here. So now I have a decorative edge, and it's going to be a straighter across than the curve, but that's fine. I'm changing the way the sleeve blows a little bit, but that's the first thing I'm going to do to prepare this. Let me zoom back out. Is cut all of this across just like this, and so that's my solution to finishing off this hem on this sleeve, this lace edge. And you can do that with a lot of laces. It just depends on how tightly woven it is, where you're cutting it at. Some laces unravel more easily. I know when I did the inset for the formal wear, I unpicked it so I'd have two finished edges, and that is because I didn't want things to be unraveling, because I knew it would be an area of friction. So we're going to see how this washes and wears. All of my fabric is pre-washed. Now, whenever I'm sewing clothing, anything that could potentially shrink or bleed, I wash it ahead of time. So I'm just going to continue on finishing these sleeves, And then I'm going to talk to you about how I'm going to stitch this to, because this portion here is the only portion that will be stitched to the rayon. This will be stitched to itself, and this is the sleeve inset. So I'm going to show you how to handle that when you're dealing with a knit and a non-knit. All right, so I'll be back shortly to show you that part. Okay, I have my sleeve prepped to go in the side. And y'all, I do not like setting in sleeves, so I will stitch my sleeve in before I sew my side seam. That's the way I do it. It's easier to me. I don't feel it makes a big difference in the garment. It still looks nice. That's just my personal preference. I don't see any reason to be fussing with setting in sleeves when you're dealing with just a basic garment. Okay, so I have the sleeve prepped. I prepped it just like I would a sleeve for any garment. I put me some basting stitches in it in case I needed to draw up a little bit, which I did. I think I originally said I was doing the flounce sleeve. I think this is just the regular sleeve. I don't think this is the flounce sleeve. So I made adjustments to it to fit my arm and everything. I think I have a video for doing that adjustment, and I will link it if I'm correct about that. But I've just pinned it all in. Again, I'm using these little small pins. It just, when you're dealing with finer fabrics like this, they tend to have a tighter weave, and the finer pins are less likely to get a snag, like I said in a previous video about that. So I've got everything prepped and I'm pinning it in, okay? So I am sewing everything together, even though this is technically a knit. It doesn't have a huge amount of stretch. I think it's a mechanical stretch due to the lace. I'm fairly certain it doesn't have any lycra or anything like that in it. I am using a Microtext 8012 needle. I find that is a Microtext needle works well with these types of wovens. Again, the snagging and getting hung bit, they just go through much easier, and it should work well on this. It worked just fine when I put my basting stitches in. I'm going to go along and make my regular seam, and then I'm going to serge the ends. Then I'm going to iron it back towards the top of the garment, and I'm going to put a top stitch on it just to finish that off and keep that in place better, since it's not a great deal heavier than this, but you can see this is way more flowy than this, okay? And I don't want it to pull on that seam too much. It should be well reinforced with the serging and all of that stuff, but I am going to keep the knit portion on top. And that's because when you put the knit portion on bottom, any kind of knit, even sewing knit to knit, the bottom tends to stretch more because of the feed dogs, okay? And when I'm doing a knit to woven stitch, I always put the knit on top so that I can monitor how much this is moving and stretching and make adjustments as I go along. So those are my tips for attaching this, the needle size, and putting the knit on top. So let me get this sewn up and I will show you what it looks like when I get finished. Okay, I wanted to show you the seam before I serge it. I did remove my basting stitches after I went along and did that because I don't want it to show on the other side. Looks like I missed a little piece right there, and sometimes they get hung up. I'll get it out, but that way it doesn't show on the other side of my seam when I turn it out, like that's doing right now. So I do remove those basting stitches before I do the serger. It's easier to get it out. Now I'm going to go along and serge this seam and top stitch it. So I'm going to serge it. Get this turned around. I'm going to serge the seam, and I'm going to iron it towards this portion. Let me get in the screen so y'all can see. I'm going to serge the seam, and I'm going to iron it towards this portion of the top because I don't want to see it out here, and I don't want it showing and stuff like that. And then I'm just going to do a little top stitch right along the edge there, and then everything will be secured. So I'll show y'all that when I get done. Okay, I've got my sleeve put in and finished. You can see my little top stitch I was talking about there. And this is what it looks like on the inside. Get in the camera. There we go. And that just finishes that off really nicely and reinforces it. Not that this is that much heavier than it, but it I just like the way that's finished off, and it'll keep things from fraying as easily. Now, something that happened I am not happy about. Let me find the spot. You can see it here. It happened in a couple of spots. But you can kind of see how I have these runs in my fabric. If I can get it to focus. There we go. Runs in my fabric. And that's from the serger. And I had this fabric on top when I did my serger, my serging seam. I guess that's it. But I think maybe I'll get better results if I do it on the bottom. That's why I didn't just serge all the seams in this, because I know what happens because it's such a tightly woven fabric. And if you don't adjust it just right, it's going to do that. So hopefully that won't happen next time. I do have a few little puckers in here. Thought I got all of them out, but that's okay. Nobody's going to be looking at that. They're going to look at this fabulous sleeve. I love how this is turning out. I just got to do the other one and my side seam. So that is going to be the end of this video of how I attached this lace, kind of stretchy lace, to this woven rayon. If you have any questions, please let me know down below. I do hope y'all enjoyed this video. And remember to have a life lived creatively. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.